I'm Peter Hayes and I farm west of Dunkeld in southwest Victoria. This was the first lucerne paddock I sowed. This would be a 6-year-old stand of sowed 7. Initially I didn't rush into sowing lucerne because the perceived downside was there'd be no winter production and you wanted your drier paddocks in the winter, but the EverGraze site at Hamilton's proved that to be a myth, and actually in some winters it actually outperformed dry grass pastures. So we went forward with it with a lot more confidence, and yeah, and we've picked those paddocks, and I think there's only about 20% of my farm that's actually totally suitable to it, so I've only got one more paddock left that I could probably sow to lucerne, and then for summer actives we have to look at something else like fescues, which we sowed a paddock last spring to a summer active fescue, and that's my first paddock of that, so we'll see how that fits into the system, but it's looking pretty good so far. I've got 4 paddocks now, and this paddock here was the first, and we sowed fescue with it, but at a very low rate, so you just have the plants you can see the fescue stems there, there's just a plant here and there, and that's more for balancing diet because lucerne can be pretty red hot, and then the rest is annuals, and I don't get too concerned about them. You can graze them out through grazing or cut it early for hay is what I do before the annual seed. That works quite well, whereas other paddocks I've sowed phalaris, but same at a very low rate, so you just end up with a plant here and there. And I also sow subclover with it as well, because subclover will drive your winter stocking rate, because your lucerne does not grow as much through the winter, of course, but so it's the other species that'll run your winter stocking rate, so the clover works quite well because it finishes off and then the lucerne comes through. I did sow one stand with chicory, and that works okay, but the insects love the chicory, and so they come in and eat the chicory, and that's the paddock I have the most insect problems on in my situation here. So I wouldn't recommend that myself, but some people have done it and it works quite well for them. Follow all the rules and plan well ahead. You probably want to plan a year, 2 years ahead with lucerne, like get your lime on the year before, get your sprays done early so you conserve moisture. I haven't had any issues with establishment, like no different to establishing any other pasture actually. Respond to summer rainfall events, plus well, we're in the autumn now and we've had a late break, but I've been still able to grow high quality feed in my lucerne paddocks. Not the volumes I have other years, but still better than most of our other perennial winter active pastures. From an animal production point of view, it's been quite outstanding really. Our merino lambs usually rotate off it, and since I've had enough lucerne in, like our lambs, their daily growth rates over, say from weaning till May, September lamb, sort of around that 50 grams, and last year we peaked at, they averaged close to 100 grams daily growth rate, so they were pretty good merino lambs without much effort, pretty much done by the pastures in the paddock. Well, with our ewe weaners, it's made a big difference by getting those early growth rates, and we join at rising 2-year-olds there. Our conception rates have increased, by probably 25% at least, yes. So we've been able to get them to those, well, they're at those target joining weights well before they need to be. And the other side's been, our wool production, sound of wool, all that's been an add-on as well. You can have stock on here and rest your winter active pastures instead of overgrazing them, and keep ground cover on those paddocks that in the past would have been probably overgrazed below sort of minimum target levels. So it's definitely made a difference in that respect, yes. Well, I have adapted it to my farm. I was going down that path of putting in summer actives and looking at it, but since being involved with EverGraze, done it with a lot more confidence, and and how it's worked for me, as I said, the summer actives get used for lambs, from weaning they go onto the summer actives till the autumn break, and then after the autumn break we autumn shear, so the oldest age group of wethers, which are rising 3-year-olds, get shorn, go on to lucerne to round them up to be sold sort of 3 weeks off shears, and then after that it's shut up again, and then I shear my lambs in late autumn, and then they've got high quality feed to go onto off shears because their feed demand's going to be a lot higher coming off shears for a few weeks, so that solves that problem. And then after that ewes are scanned, and then twinning ewes usually go onto the lucerne. And that's how I'm using the EverGraze pasture systems for my livestock system, which is a self-replacing merino flock. and it's been working fantastically well. Well, with EverGraze, I've been on the committee since the start of the program, and then sort of about halfway through I became chair of our local ERG, had involvement right from the start and input, yes. And EverGraze, for me, and being involved directly with research, it's invaluable to have local relevant research that's specific to your area. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. Just driving around here, like with research, there's that trickle-down effect. You notice, particularly in the summer, like 10 years ago you wouldn't have noticed a lucerne paddock, whereas, you know, you do notice quite a few driving around now, and people would say, well, you know, it may not have been because of EverGraze, but with the trickle-down effect, it's created that interest, and there's been lots of articles written, and you know, there's a couple of agronomists on the ERG. I'm sure it's had an impact. Well, I'm positive it has.